what are the biggest mistakes that some of these brands, small and large, are making in the industry right now?
Great question. I think without going into the rabbit hole of necessarily design, let's take a step back and look at process, because I think understanding the process first and foremost will help reveal the obvious design faux pas.
You're listening to Cultivate, a podcast about the people and technology that are blazing a trail in the cannabis industry.
Live, day 2 at Lemon Haze. We've got Cultivate. Lance stepping in for Drew. Thank you again.
Yeah, not a problem.
Today, we've got Jared Mirsky, the CEO of Wick Mortar, with us. Thank you for being here, Jared.
Thanks for having me.
In just a quick summary, can you tell us what Wick Mortar is and what you do in the cannabis industry?
Yeah, Wick Mortar is a hybrid creative agency. We create branding, digital marketing strategies. We handle sourcing as far as packaging is concerned, packaging design, web development, app development, social media, content management. I mean, really the whole nine. It's been a long run, and we've been, I started the company in 2009, so during the inception of the cannabis industry is when we started.
You just went through a rebrand. It's been about a year now, right?
A little over a year.
So this dog years in this industry.
I know, right?
Flies by.
But you went through this rebrand, and I don't mean to do the plug, but you guys actually did a documentary on it, and I watched a clip when you guys were sitting around in that think tank brainstorming the new name, and the way that you guys and the team, you got a great team. I mean, we do too, but it's where our companies have in common. But it was so clutch. I mean, you guys were all like Wick and more, and how you came to it. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be the name. Like, it was totally obvious. Like, it made so much sense, dude. So you've been through a lot, been around for a minute. Mm-hmm. And so this transition into the new brand, it's on fire, right?
Yeah. So, we did it because, even though we were we were the first, branding agency to approach the industry, before it was really much of an industry, I guess you could say. We had to call ourselves something as obvious as online marijuana design, because there were no ancillary businesses catering themselves to the cannabis industry. And so ultimately we had to have a name that stood out as something as obvious as that. But also, Google's algorithm at the time, they ranked real well based on search queries. Yeah. So
keywords for the win.
Right. So online marijuana design, that was our name. It wasn't creative, but it got the job done. And so, that then transitioned into OMD agency, which was a lot more mature. But we still felt like we didn't have much of a personality. And given the fact that we were a branding agency with a name, with marijuana in our name, pot leaf in our logo, and green in our branding, and here we were, creative agency telling everyone not to do that.
Right. Kind of played out by now, right?
Yeah. So this just goes to show that no matter how great you think you are, other brands that come into play can also and ultimately dilute your brand simply by being the same. Because everyone's coming into this thinking that they should call themselves Canna this or Canna that, when in fact
it's almost ridiculous how many. It's like all the colors are the green, and it's like, do something different.
And I think it's rubbed off on the mainstream, and I don't. So that's why I think, Jared, you and I connected. We've known each other for years now, but my background being digital media and marketing, it's interesting because this year's Pantone for 2018 is green. And I really think our industry had an influence on that. I really do. Because you're right, so much green, even terms like the apothecary, like how many apotha, how many,
you can't keep track. We have so many customers with that in their name. Yeah. When you look them up between our system, it pulls up 25, and it's like, wait, which one is? It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's tough.
You have to ask yourself, what do you look for when creating a name for your company? What we really wanted to ensure we were able to cultivate with the name we created was that we'd been around for a long time. We wanted the name to feel timeless. And when you think of the word brick and mortar, it's a word and phrase rather used to describe something built from the ground up. And since we are a creative agency and we build brands, we are establishing the foundation for these companies. Yeah. Brick by brick, we are helping them build their company from the ground up. And the mortar is the glue that holds these things together. And so
it's really clever.
Wick Mortar, it's ethereal too. It burns. Yeah. It's also a nod to the cannabis industry.
Yeah.
So we thought it worked well.
You guys, I love it because you did start out with a core focus on marketing. Obviously, that's a great introduction to the relationship. And then you all quickly realize, and a lot of people don't know this, right, that advertising is a component within marketing. but you all started going that direction too, because that's a great way to not just cultivate but retain that relationship. What challenges? And I know you make it all look easy because you're all over social media. You've been a bit of a personality in the industry and yourself as a brand in the company, but still it comes back to Facebook and Instagram. Obviously Instagram owned by Facebook, Google and YouTube owned by Google, so similar. Yeah. Where are the challenges there? Do you guys have to get creative with what you're putting out as far as content to keep the bots happy, so to speak, as we say?
First I have to say that most creative agencies don't try and position themselves as lifestyle brands. Yeah. As a creative agency, we wanted to show what our personalities were like, primarily because we have so much fun doing what we do that we felt like we should share the same experience we have working on the brands we create for our clients as the same experience they would like to have when they build the brand themselves. But because they don't know how to do it, they want to work with an agency. So why not make that process fun? Because honestly, that is the most fun part of building a brand.
Yeah.
So, looking at how we first satisfy the client, right, is paramount.
That's what you get. You probably get a lot of people that come back and you go, man, you put my brand on point, everything's spot on. Now how do I, because that's the way I used to describe it. I'd be like, okay, you getting your business together off the ground and everything, it's like you're getting ready to throw a sick party, right? You got top shelf alcohol or top shelf flower, whatever it is. You still need to send out invites. You still need to let people know where you are. And that's especially when I was in digital media. I'd be like, okay, we built this sick site, and they're like, cool, all the traffic's going to come. I'm going to turn it into this juggernaut in the world of click and mortar, as we used to say, right?
If you build it, they won't come.
No, they don't come because I'm like, you have an island. So imagine you're Hawaii, and there's no planes, there's no ships, there's no nothing. That's the advertising that has to come in. So I think that's what you're getting. It's like that you guys, okay, yeah, now we built this for you, and they will come. Right. Because you're going to have us help you there too. Right?
Yeah, from a social perspective, you really, really have to get granular with respect to how you approach the people you're trying to market. When I began my, exploration of LinkedIn, because I would say LinkedIn has been a platform that I've been able to dedicate a portion of my success to.
Oh, yeah.
Primarily because I've just been able to tap into a really good market. But essentially what I started doing was requesting relationships through LinkedIn that were, creative directors and other agency owners, because I felt like the work we were doing would be something that they would be interested in engaging with. They're not doing that stuff, and a lot of them aren't. So I have friends and family in, the large agency, traditional agency world over there in good old New York. And so, I kind of tapped into some of their connections and really started to explore. And before I knew it, I had a lot of people with their eyes on, OMD. And then we went through the rebrand and we documented it. And then people were really inspired by the process we took, because honestly, not a lot of agencies are as transparent as I think we are about our process. We don't think that our process is necessarily the secret sauce. We think that it only conveys that we are a cannabis company that's focused on cannabis, rather, that has their shit together.
Yeah.
And that's what brands in the industry need to see when working with new
especially
companies
as
in
it
the
matures.
Space.
You get these companies in Canada that are these high-level CEOs and
very buttoned up.
Yeah. And you have some news on that too in Canada, don't you?
That's I have to share because I'm so excited about it, because Jared and I always catch up all the shows, and we were down at CSC. We were at the Cannabis Science Conference down in Portland. Got to hang out with Fran Drescher. Great video.
Yep.
And I have to say, man, you shared it, and I was so stoked because having been a former business owner myself, a few companies, like, this is pivotal for you, man. You picked up Aurora, which we are good friends. We love that LP. We love a lot of the LPs we work with, but Aurora, man, there is something about that company. So when I heard you picked up, tell us about that, man. That is a huge win.
I love everything about them as far as, my experience working with them. Yep. Tracy and Marcel, they've been excellent to work with. They're so down to earth. You'd think that with a company of that size and corporate structure, they'd be a bit stuffy, but so not
Canadians.
at all. They're amazing. They've all got
a beauty. 100%.
Yeah, they've got, again, they're a good representation of a brand with life. You can't have a lifestyle, but they definitely are a brand with life. No, it's been great working with them. We've been really, really focused on building out a sales training manual. This has been a huge project, but I'm super stoked. I mean, they love it. We love it. It's a work of art.
It's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Serious, man. Because they are not, and that's the thing. I don't think people continue on Canada. That's a territory that Scott has to focus on. It's world domination. Like it's a game of Monopoly, and they own all Park Place all the way to Pasco. I mean, they are definitely dominant. So I think it's cool because Aurora is, a lot of people think Canada, think of a Canadian LP. But man, they're at the shows with us down in the States, right? I mean, they're
everywhere.
And I know they're in Europe. I know I'm keeping track of all the LPs in every continent I run into them on. Yeah. And they seem like a company that's doing it right. So they're smart to think.
I think that's been our focus, is really working with just public companies and companies going public. We're working with Covalent, formerly known as Doyen Elements, and then fingers crossed, but we're talking to GTI about working with a brand and helping them rebrand, actually, a company they just recently acquired.
Nice.
And then we're working with PackX, which
we know PackX.
Chris, amazing individual. Their team is just phenomenal. So we're helping them actually develop a little 15-minute documentary on paying homage to Humboldt and what's to be the appellations of Humboldt, and the culture and the microclimates and the dry, the dry growing and cultivation and just really everything that makes them unique. In fact, many people, as I'm sure you know, consider potency the best way to price cannabis, which we all know is not the way to do it.
Can't wait till we get past that. Can't wait till we get past the adolescence phase.
And then everyone just assumes that indoor grown cannabis is always going to be superior to that of outdoor.
Indoor light depth, and you hit, and I think safe to say that you're a bit of a purist. I mean, I deem myself a connoisseur. I have such a large respect for outdoor. Not to get on a tangent, but I mean, you get past the genotype into the phenotype that Inika, you mentioned it, like the marine layer, these micro environments that make the triangle so special, right?
Well, they grow their vegetables alongside
companion crops.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a big thing. I have friends that they plant clover leaves between their rows because from a phytoremediation of moisture. It's something that just helps keep moisture in the ground. To keep I mean, it's so
That's
crazy.
That's a really interesting fact. We just named a company Clover.
Really?
I shit you not. So
dope.
I would love for you to share that with my creative director Derek at the end, because that's a really interesting fact. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you learn something.
There's some
every day.
Plants than others. I mean, some are traditionalists. They do things like roses on the front of their crop, like the wineries and such do. There's all different types of traditions, but now you can tell it's what I miss living in SoCal compared to growing up in NorCal. Things like that. I mean, it's just.
What are some challenges you see brands or companies facing in terms of advertising and marketing as it gets more regulated, the whole market or the whole industry as a whole?
Well, everyone has their own interpretations of what they think packaging rules are.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, there are a lot of designers that don't do their due diligence. And so the cultivator relies on the designer to provide them with what they think is the best packaging solution, when in fact it's not always the best possible, possibly harmful for the environment. And I mean, more importantly, it's not legal, right? So
it's a big one,
right?
Yeah,
that's
kind of important.
That's what's great. Some people lead with the requisite and the regulations, right, around their packaging, and others lead with the passion of design and the creative elements of marketing.
Well,
right? So
when I'm vetting a potential client or a relationship, one of the first questions I ask them is if they've ever worked with a creative agency before, because it is significantly different than working with a designer.
Yeah.
Designer, consultant in general,
or consultant, because designers solve what kind of problems? Designer problems, but a branding agency solves business problems through design, right, and storytelling.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the potential clients that we work with often become rebrands, because when they come to us, they think they've done it right or have a good start.
Yeah.
And then I tell them our process and like, oh shit, I had no idea that was even part of it. They didn't know that there was a part where you go through and you build the personality of your company, right? Who would have thought that was a product? That doesn't come when you create the name. No, you do the personality before you do the name. It makes it easier to come up with a name, right? There's just a formula.
Yeah. Crazy. So that's a good way of putting it. You do kind of, to a certain level, breathe life into it. And I think some of the stuff you do, it's shown. Like, it definitely has shown that, and the way you launch it too, I think that's, and to your point, again, we're both on LinkedIn all the time, but that's what I love about following you is you're like, hey, what do you guys think? Like, this is something we're working on. This is a brand we're getting ready to launch, but would like a little input from my peers. I think it's awesome because a lot of companies want to keep that under wraps. Some of these bigger guys rep companies like Coca-Cola and Apple and stuff. They like keeping it so secretive, and they're so confident that what they're going to put out is going to kill it. Yet, you're kind of humble in that way, right? You're kind of modest and like, let's get a little feedback. Let's test the waters.
Yeah, I like that, and I like it because, you know, sometimes clients will also allow us to reveal parts and pieces of the brand as we start to reveal it because they're interested in getting feedback from other high-level creatives. It's almost an added benefit. It's like my survey network, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But from people that come from the traditional space. So it's nice. And I would also say that, you know, another mixture of my, you know, mayhem, which I call LinkedIn, is, you know, investors and other cultivators. Because, I mean, who am I marketing to? Them, right? Yeah. And, of course, distribution companies and dispensary chains and so forth. But, you know, I would say that has allowed me to establish engagement is just really understanding who would even be interested in looking at packaging.
Yeah.
Right? Who wants to look at that?
It makes sense, though. Right? I mean, I worked for a few companies. We talk about this company at Boveda. You know, the core, and I've told our marketing team, we got a few guys here filming us right now from it. You know, we are, marketing is at our core as our company. You know, it's about our brand being on point. We're even starting to dabble a little into the lifestyle, as you mentioned. Some companies, sales. I worked for a company before this. The nuclei of that company was sales, which is fine. But it really... It's something about that whole marketing component really shapes it and helps people relate to it. We love, I mean, that's why we do something. You see us, we're at every show. I mean, we love being up because we love getting in touch with the consumer and getting feedback on what we're doing and how it's working for them. Yep. So I think that's really cool that you
appreciate that
into the marketing.
I appreciate that
too, for sure. So I think another thing to look at, and we can keep this totally ambiguous because you and I both know, we all know that there's a few brands that have been doing it very wrong. Just in general, though, what would you say? And I think we kind of touched on this. You talked about leaves everywhere in green, Pantone, but what are the biggest mistakes that some of these brands, small and large, are making in the industry right now?
Great question. I think without going into the rabbit hole of necessarily design, let's take a step back and look at process, because I think understanding the process first and foremost will help reveal the obvious design faux pas, right? So when we approach, any client, we start with the creative brief. The creative brief is where we go through a series of in-depth questions tailored to your business that help us better understand and solidify the creative direction moving forward. These very specific questions reveal information and insight that is paramount to the process in terms of how you approach the creative.
Yeah.
So once we've had the ability to extrapolate that information, we then move into the brand directional mood boards. The brand directional mood boards is where I think the best way to put this is, let's look at Gillette razors and the Dollar Shave Club.
Yeah.
Gillette is the best a man can get, right? Very masculine, bold, futuristic in their aesthetic approach, is where the Dollar Shave Club is witty, comical, right? Funny. Yeah. And the amount of money they spent to put together their commercial is nominal in comparison to what Gillette has had to spend. Yeah. But nonetheless, the Dollar Shave Club was very successful. Why? Well, they took a risk. They differentiated themselves completely, and so well, in fact, that
Gillette came back, right?
The Dollar Shave Club, grew to become the monster they are today.
Yeah.
While competing with Gillette.
This behemoth.
Right?
Which Gillette, to your point, I love that story. I don't mean to geek out, but this is one thing I thought was pivotal, and this is when you know a disruptor has made an impact on an industry. So Gillette, there's a lot of companies that kind of monopolize certain niches in certain industries, right? Gillette had owned it for so long, and there was none of that personal. They never talked about their employee. Have you seen their latest campaign? I mean, they literally came out with a marketing campaign that targeted Dollar Shave Club and said, made in America, made by these hardworking individuals from this town. Like, they literally pivoted their whole, we're the best, we're number one, we're the only, and by the way, we charge you $8 a blade.
There was no like personal connection for the consumer to the
They don't
brand
touch on the real parts of social responsibility. But my point of that was that had the Dollar Shave Club came out with a personality that was similar to Gillette, much like Braun, right?
Yeah.
They would have created more competition for themselves prior to even starting. So they're failing before they start.
Yeah.
So when you see brands come to market, they're trying to emulate or echo another brand that they saw, when in fact that's not the right way to do it.
Yeah.
You need to take a risk, calculated of course, but again, that's why people come to agencies to help provide those creative suggestions and solutions and explorations with supporting rationales to show why you should do this. So once we've solidified on a personality that we've presented, we provide them with curated images that are designed to make you feel specific emotions alongside personality traits or words like bold or futuristic if we were to use those, but with supporting rationale to reinforce the why behind bold and futuristic, because bold to you can mean something different to me.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So we get very definitive, but from there then we go into the naming process. We had this client come to us with the name Uncle Mark's Farm. And the story of Uncle Mark is that this gal Diane and her husband Chris sent to Uncle Mark, who's growing cannabis in Eastern Washington, and he was growing, essentially medical marijuana.
Yeah.
And he was arrested by the federal government and sent to prison. And in prison, he got sick and died. And so they wanted to build a brand when cannabis became legal in Oregon and call it Uncle Mark's Farm. But I told them that was not a good name, and it stemmed from the information that they gave me through the creative brief. They said they didn't want it to be masculine.
Yeah.
When I asked them to close their eyes and tell me what they visualized when they said Uncle Mark's Farm, they said a guy in overalls standing in front of a farm. So that's pretty masculine. And then when you look at the fact that so many brands in the industry have farm at the end, and then a name prior to Uncle Ike's, right? There's just all of these uncles, Marks, they're very same, right?
Yeah.
So we explained to them the faux pas and the situations that could arise if we decided to take this route.
Yeah.
So they gave us the ability to change their name. The name we chose was Rebel Spirit. The reason why Rebel Spirit worked in a number of ways is because, unlike Uncle Mark's Farm, we were no longer hindered by our ability to expand on the brand's visual language, right? With Rebel Spirit, when you look at and think of the name, their Uncle Mark is a rebel and his spirit will live on through the brand, but more importantly, each and every consumer and patient purchases cannabis illegally on a federal level.
Yeah.
Thus, Uncle Mark lives vicariously through all of us because we can purchase that and get away with it.
That's deeply so clever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like talking about like the FABs, the features, advantages, benefits. Some people focus so much on features of something, they don't discuss the advantages and benefits. Very similar though. You're talking about like, we can still pay that homage, but we can do it in a different way. Like, because that's the first thing I picture. I'm like, it'd be okay to have a guy stand in front of I would think almost like a silhouette of him in front of a farm or a sunset in the background because of it being Spokane or Eastern Washington. But to your point, something's a little more general. That totally meant like, obviously you're good at what you do, man. This all makes sense. This all makes sense.
Yeah, sometimes it's nice to remain a little vague and have a bit of mystery.
Yeah.
And not always be so obvious. Again, online marijuana design, that's about as literal as it gets.
Yeah.
Again, we rebranded because if you look at the landscape of brands in the industry today, most of them are going to need a rebrand. If a lot of you growers out there are wondering why you're starting to see sales drop, it's because when you started, you were all branded equally as terrible.
Yeah.
Well, and now there's good brands coming to market, and so those are starting to create what's called brand loyalty.
Bit of a disruption there,
and so now you're seeing the shift.
Yeah.
And now there's the brand bouncing is starting to happen less and less and less.
Yeah.
And so Boveda, before it was Boveda, was Humidipack. I mean, it's like, literally, that's exactly what our packets are. It's a Humidipack.
Just simple white and blue packs.
And people are coming out with knockoffs like Humipuck, Huma this. And it's like, we need to like differentiate ourselves from everyone else because we have a patented technology that no one else can make. And then that's where you get Boveda, which is a Spanish word for vault.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like Humipack. What was it? Humipack? You said
Humidipack.
Humidipack would be like the name of the product, and then Boveda is the name of the company, right?
Yeah.
You can, that would have been actually kind of a cool name to coin for that, and then you can.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, cool.
For sure.
But anyways,
cool stuff. Well, what do you think about, man? There's so much again. You're out there on the scene. You get it. You see it. the future of cannabis, like in general? I know it's a very vague and
hard
open-ended question. Yeah.
We like to ask everyone, though, that comes on that
just
question.
like, what do you see in the future? I mean, keep in mind, obviously, the first G7 country to come online, that being Canada, and some of the things they have up their sleeves. And
we're working with a company right now called Melix, which is really cool because what we're doing is we have DNA test kits that will test your DNA to tell you what terpene profiles work best with your genetic makeup or markers, rather.
I think I've heard a little bit about this.
Wow. Yeah, so they're called Melix GX. Yeah.
Yep. And that's cool, right? Because that's next level stuff. I mean, again, a lot of us, they're kind of regulars. We talk about it all the time. Like, one of the things I always bring up, like, stop asking me indica or sativa. It's not even, 80-90% of what out there is a hybrid. Ask me what my favorite terpene is. Ask me what my favorite profile between THC, CBD, and CBN or CBG is.
Yeah.
Like, let's take it to the next level, because we need to. And we all lead with education. You're like me. Like, I've seen people walk up to you and you lead the conversation with education. Scott does it. I do it. And I'm just hoping that we get there. But, man, sky's the limit, right?
Yeah, that's, you talk about education, and that's really why, mutual friend of ours, JJ Walker.
Yep.
Cannabis Museum in Las Vegas.
Right there on the strip.
One of the only cannas, I will admit, that I had no problem branding, because in this instance, it actually makes sense.
Yeah.
No, but a great place to get informed and educated. So if you're in Las Vegas,
and
go
you
to
want
downtown Las Vegas in the Fremont district, and you will find Cannabis, and it is awesome.
And that's, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember, another friend of ours, Jerome Baker.
Yep.
I think that's the world's
Jason
biggest
Harris,
bong.
yep.
Right?
Yep, Jason Harris, a.k.a. Jerome Baker.
Yep.
Glass, yep. Blue Bongzilla, 24-foot bong.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jason.
Yeah, man. And I love his, you've been to his place
shop,
in the art district. His shop is dope.
Well,
the bong that's over here?
No, this is a relatively speaking a small one. His collection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he actually blew he blew a Wick Mortar pipe for us, actually.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Beautiful work that he does. I'm a
Yeah, he's
huge
great.
fan. I'm sure we'll be by over there during MJ
Yeah,
Biz
actually, I'm
again
having
this year.
him come down for Pacific Expediters Emerald Cup, because they're sponsoring the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yep.
And I have Jason flying down with some of his bongs. He's gonna be
Nice.
signing, autographing covers of Dope magazine.
That's sick.
sweet.
It's cool.
This has been another live episode of Cultivate here at Lemon Haze. We got Jared here with Wick Mortar. Thank you for being on the show. If you need to rebrand or you're looking for some help in advertising, hit them up.